Welcome. My name is Andrew Danis. I am the co-chair of the EALG network of law firms. Founded in 1985, the EALG is a global network of independent law firms with members in Europe, the United States, Asia, South America, and the Middle East. Our members collaborate in representing clients in cross-border transactions and in engaging and exchanging informational updates on legal issues and developments in member countries. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Rodrigo Jardim Gonçalves of the EALG Lisbon, Portugal member firm Jardim, Gonçalves and Associados. Rodrigo will first correct me on my Portuguese pronunciation, and then he will be speaking on the topic of how about coming to live or invest in Portugal, or maybe becoming Portuguese. Legal avenues for foreigners to live, work, and invest in Portugal with or without a golden visa. Rodrigo's presentation is part of a series of regular webinars that the EALG hosts on legal issues in EALG member jurisdictions. We invite you to explore our other member firm webinar presentations on both the EALG.com website and also on the EALG YouTube channel. Thank you again for joining us. I will now turn this webinar over to Rodrigo, who will explain why all of us are going to soon live and work in Portugal. Rodrigo?
I think that now you are hearing me. Thank you very much, Andrew, for your words. So I will start by presenting this lovely picture. For me, it's a pleasure to be here at this webinar, and I do hope you find this presentation interesting. As Andrew said, the theme is how about coming to live or invest in Portugal, or maybe becoming Portuguese. And we start with the picture. Portugal is coastal to the Atlantic Ocean, and this is just a photograph, a beautiful photograph that we choose to attract people to visit us. So maybe some people are from Europe and know Portugal, some people are not. So just to show you the map of the world, Portugal is right here in this arrow, this red arrow that is pointing to Portugal. In a more close picture, Portugal is this tiny little country on the southwest Europe. Our only neighbor is Spain, and Portugal is actually the western country in the European continent, except of course we have United Kingdom and Ireland, but that's not the continental Europe. And so we are, as we can see, just right in front of New York City. Lisbon is right in front of New York City, so we are much closer to America than many people may think. So our presentation today is going to be focused in three different aspects: living, working, and investing in Portugal. And then we will focus on nationality. And when we talk about nationality, we are specifically addressing this subject to the Sephardic Jews. We have a long history with Jews, and Jews were expelled from the Portuguese territory in the 15th or 16th century. And now we have a program that all the centuries ago tries to make peace with this mistake that we've made in history, and try to give back the Portuguese nationality to Sephardic Jews that have still some kind of connection with the Portuguese community. Then we have, as I was mentioning before, just before the webinar started, that we have a very interesting tax regime for non-habitual residents that is actually quite attractive and allows that people have a lot of tax benefits, from 0 actually to 20% of a flat rate, between 10 and 20% in some cases. So it's very interesting for people to come to live here and have this special tax regime. And one thing that is very interesting about this tax regime, and this is applicable both to European Union countries and both to third countries, okay? So start by living in Portugal. I'll start to say that for European Union citizens, it's quite easy to live in Portugal, of course, because of the Union Treaty. European Union citizens have the right to reside in Portugal for up to 3 months without any conditions or formalities, other than holding a valid identity document. If their stay in Portugal lasts longer than 3 months, they just have to go to the Foreign Services before the city hall, the local city hall, and register themselves as residents in Portugal. For third countries, which means countries that do not belong to the European Union, we have a visa called the D7. The D7 visa is intended to obtain a residence permit in Portugal for citizens of a third country who are in 3 conditions: who are pensioners, who are people that live on their own income, or people who perform religious functions such as Jewish or Arab or other kind of religious functions. So the applicant must obtain the visa in the country of origin, of the country of citizenship, to enter in Portuguese territory. The entrance in the Portuguese territory has to be valid. So the visa must be obtained actually before the Portuguese consulate in the country of origin. And the country can also, the candidate can also apply for the residence visa for family members under the residence permit for family reunion. At the Portuguese consulate, the applicant should require the schedule of the interview before the Foreign Services here in Portugal in the time that he is estimating that he will be in Portugal after holding the visa. So other than the general requirements necessary to obtain any visas, such as the criminal record, the proof that he has means of being sustainable by himself, the applicant must prove that he or she earns a monthly income equivalent to at least 1 Portuguese minimum wage. Therefore, the applicant must have a Portuguese bank account with his or her annual remuneration deposit. So this is one of the issues that actually is quite important, because opening a bank account sometimes can be even more difficult than getting the residence permit, because the compliance nowadays are very demanding with the origin of the funds. Of course, if we are speaking of small amounts like a minimum wage, there will be no problem, but then problems arrive when people that live with their self-income, they have to demonstrate the origin of the funds. And this sometimes it's even more complicated if you are coming from a blacklisted country that has problems with corruption or acts of terrorism or money laundering. So this is one of the issues that sometimes complicate a lot the residence permit, because residence permit, to obtain it, you should have a Portuguese bank account where the remuneration or the means of living are deposited, demonstrating the means of subsistence. The visa is valid for 4 months and is valid for 2 entries in Portugal. And then here, before the Foreign Services, people can apply for the temporary residence permit, which is valid for a period of 2 years and renewable for successive periods of 3 years. Working in Portugal. If you want to work in Portugal, there is now a new kind of visa that is very interesting. It started in November, so just this month. So it's quite recent, and we still don't have information about how it actually works. But this is a new law that I think it's from July, but the regulation only was established at the beginning of November. And this means that foreign subordinate workers and independent professionals or entrepreneurs who provide professional activity remotely to natural or legal persons domiciled or headquartered outside Portugal. So they want to live here, but working, for example, imagine I want to work for Microsoft or for Google in the United States, but I actually want to live here and work remotely to a company headquartered in the United States. I can ask for a digital nomad. And so in this case, the applicant must obtain a visa at the Portuguese consulate in the respective country of citizenship to enter Portuguese territory and obtain the corresponding residence permit in Portugal. As in the other cases, the applicant can apply for the family reunion and bring his family together with him. The average monthly income in this case is bigger, and it has to be at least 3 months. Sorry, the income of the last 3 months must be equivalent at least 4 times the national minimum wage, which is currently 705 euros. So we're talking basically about 2,800 euros per month. The applicant has to prove the existence of the work service or the service contract, the working agreement or the service contract. And the visa is valid for 4 months and is valid for 2 entries in Portugal, and the temporary residence is valid for a period of 2 years and renewable for successive periods of 3 years. A new kind of visa is quite recent, also from November, is the work search visa. The work search visa allows foreign citizens to enter into Portugal to look for a work. So even if they don't have a promissory contract agreement, they can apply for the visa just to look for work. However, this visa has a maximum duration of 120 days and is extendable for a further 60 days. This visa authorizes the holder to engage a dependent employment activity until the expiry of the visa or until a residence permit is granted. If the holder of the visa, however, does not begin to work within this period, he or she will have to leave the country and can only submit a new work search visa for the same purpose after 1 year. Investing in Portugal. There are different kinds of visa to invest in Portugal, and we have, well, the first one is the D2 visa, and is intended to obtain a residence permit in Portugal for citizens of a third country. I repeat that the third countries are non-European Union countries. Self-employed workers, people who intend to work in Portugal and already have an employment contract or work proposal within a liberal profession, such as lawyers, for example. Investors, D2 visa is intended for businessmen who wish to undertake or invest in the country. In the same cases as the other, the applicant must obtain the visa at the Portuguese consulate in the country of origin to enter validly in Portugal. He should schedule the interview before the foreign services in Portugal in the Portuguese consulate of the country of origin, if possible. It's much more easy because there is an online platform that allows to do that. He can also apply in this case for the family reunion, just as in the other cases. So in addition to the general requirements necessary to obtain any visa, the applicant must prove certain requirements, such as a contract for the provision of services or the entrepreneurial project. This visa is valid for 4 months and for 2 entries, and the temporary permit is valid for 2 years, renewable for successive periods of 3 years. And now we're talking about the Golden Visa. This is a program that brought a lot of investors to Portugal. Now the government is thinking on suspending this program. There is a bit of a controversial here in this subject, but for now the program is still valid. So the Golden Visa, or the residence permit for investment activity, corresponds to an authorization to enter and reside in Portugal for citizens of third countries, non-European Union countries, who intend to invest financially in the country. In this particular case, no residence visa is required to enter in Portugal. People can come to Portugal with a tourism visa and apply for the golden visa. In the other cases, people have to have the correct kind of visa to apply for the residence permit once they arrive to Portugal. In this case of the golden visa, they can come with a tourism visa, and here once they are here, they can apply for the golden visa. Okay. This golden visa is valid for 1 year and is renewable for successive periods of 2 years. Real estate investments. So different kinds of investment activities eligible to obtain a golden visa. The most typical one and the more used one, as we will see in the next slides, is the real estate investment. These demands a property acquisition or the acquisition and refurbishing of a real estate property. The capital investment demands a capital transfer, investigation and development, and investment funds and venture capital funds. And the job creation demands constitution of a commercial society and job creation or job creation by itself. Real estate investment demands an acquisition of real estate worth 500,000 euros or more, in the acquisition of real estate with a construction or should be that was concluded more than 30 years ago or located in an area of urban rehabilitation in an amount equal or superior to 350,000 euros. However, since January 2022, only investment in residential real estate located in areas of lower population density, such as the countryside or the islands of Madeira or Azores, are eligible to obtain a golden visa. So typically, Lisbon and Porto are out of the program now, unless you buy a property for tourism. And in that case, you still can buy a real estate in Lisbon or Porto, but the destination of the house cannot be to live. It has to be for services such as tourism. Capital investment is very easy, but you have to have 1.5 million to transfer to a Portuguese bank account. Then you can also transfer less money, but it has to be applied in funding artistic production, recovery or maintenance of national cultural heritage. And in that case, the amount is lower to 250,000. Transfer of capital in investment funds or venture capital in companies headquartered in national territory in an amount equal to or greater to 500,000 euros. One may also transfer capital in research activities developed by public or private scientific research institutions integrated in the national scientific and technological system, also in an amount equal or greater than 500,000 euros. Job creation is the creation of at least 10 job positions. Capital transfer in the constitution of a company headquartered in national territory in an amount equal to or greater than 500,000 euros with the creation of 5 permanent jobs. Capital transfer for the increase of the share capital for a company already established in the amount equal or superior to 500,000 and with the creation of 5 permanent jobs for a minimum period of 3 years. So as we can see, the real estate investment is much more simple, demands much less bureaucracy, and actually is the most mean used to apply for the golden visa. Giving a historic perspective on the golden visa, in the last 10 years, from October to September 2022, in the last 10 years, were obtained more than 11,000 golden visa, almost half of them from China, 1,000 from Brazil, 500 from Turkey, America, and South Africa, more or less. Family reunion permits were 18,000, and the real estate property purchasing in these years were of 10,000 real estate properties. So from the 11,000, 10,000 were real estate purchases. The last information available monthly in last September, 120 permits, 26 from China, 17 United States. UK is just as the Brexit started, they start applying for golden visas to Brazil and India, and 175 permits for family members. So as you can see in this graphic, real estate investment is the most common mean to invest in Portugal and to apply for the golden visa. Benefits of the golden visa are the free circulation within the Schengen area, living and working in Portugal under the condition of residing in the country for a period of only 7 or more days in the first year and 14 or more days in subsequent years. Access to Portuguese education, healthcare, work and courts, family reunification. And after 5 years of residence, you may apply for Portuguese citizenship by naturalization, provided all the other requirements of the nationality law. Even though the Golden Visa program has proven to be essential to the increase of investment in Portugal in the 10 years following its approval, Prime Minister António Costa recently admitted that the end of the Golden Visa program is being evaluated, stating that it has probably already fulfilled its function and at the moment it is no longer justified to maintain. However, the Association of Real Estate Professionals and Companies of Portugal considers that this eventual decision would be incongruous and that the eradication of the Golden Visa program will not solve the problem of real estate speculation. Nationality. Now we enter in a different subject, but I think it can be also interesting only for the, I'll be focusing only in the Sephardic Jews, okay? So, as you know, we have a history. I already told at the beginning, in the 15th or 16th century, the kings of Portugal, after the kings of Spain, expelled the Jews from national territory. And most of them actually went to Holland, to Amsterdam, but others went to different countries in Europe and all around the world. So trying to make peace and compensate these families for this, the Portuguese government established a program that gives back the Portuguese nationality if people from these families are having still some kind of connection with the Portuguese territory. This has been quite controversial, especially when the war started, when Russia invaded Ukraine. People noticed that Roman Abramovich was one of the Russian he was a descendant from Sephardic Jews, and that he acquired the Portuguese nationality, even though he apparently didn't have as many connections with the Portuguese community as people thought it would be necessary. So after this, there was a change in the law, and now there are more, the law is more demanding about an effective connection with the Portuguese territory. So the requirements to apply for the Portuguese nationality from Sephardic Jews is to be descendant of Portuguese Sephardic Jews, belonging to a Sephardic community of Portuguese origin, be over 18, not having been convicted of a crime that in Portugal is punishable by a prison sentence of 3 years or more, proof of non-involvement in terrorism-related activities, proof of a tradition of belonging to a Sephardic community of Portuguese origin, based on proven objective requirements of connection to Portugal, namely surnames, family language, direct or collateral. Required documentation: a birth registration certificate, criminal record, certificate of a Jewish community with the status of a religious legal person based in Portugal, attesting the tradition of belonging to a Sephardic community of Portuguese origin. To prove the ancestry and tradition of belonging to Sephardic community of Portuguese origin, the following documents are admitted. In particular, document issued by a Jewish community with a tradition to which the interested party belongs, attesting to the use by the same of expressions in Portuguese in Jewish rites, or as language spoken by him within that community of Latino. Documentary records such as synagogue records in Jewish cemeteries, as well as residence permits, property titles, wills, genealogical studies, and other evidence of family connection via direct descent or family relationship in the common parents collateral line from the Sephardic community of Portuguese origin. Documents to prove an effective and lasting connection to Portugal are the proof of ownership transmitted mortis causa of real estate located in Portugal, or of shareholdings in companies based in Portugal, or proof of regular travel to Portugal. And lastly, we are entering in the non-habitual tax regime. So let me see I was checking here on chat. I already have 2 questions. So non-habitual residence. The non-habitual residence actually is very interesting because it's a special regime granted for 10 years, ensuring advantages to the beneficiaries in the taxation of the income to be earned. To apply for the NHR status, the following conditions must be met: to be registered as a tax resident in Portugal, have not been a resident in Portugal for the prior 5 years, and to submit the NHR request. Under the provisions of this regime, foreign sourced income earned by the non-habitual residence holder may be exempt of tax at 10 or 20% flat rates instead of the Portuguese income tax could go up to the 48%. Who can apply? A citizen that is considered for tax purposes a resident in Portuguese territory and that has not been considered resident in Portuguese territory in any of the 5 years preceding the first year of registration as a tax resident. So even a Portuguese that have lived abroad for more than 5 years, when he returns, he can apply for the non-habitual residence program. And this has also been made to attract young people that had immigrated to come back to Portugal and establish here for their families, to work, to create job, to create more economic activity. So a citizen who is considered a non-habitual resident acquires the right to be taxed in 10 consecutive years as a non-habitual resident. The application for registration must be submitted until the 31st of March of the following year as tax residents in Portugal. So this is basically this presentation. We finished with the same photograph that we started. I'll just interrupt the sharing of the screen, and I will see that we have here some questions. Let me see. So what are the downsides, reasons why Andrew is asking me why someone would not want to use of these programs? Well, it depends on the personal circumstances of people. I don't see any disadvantage. I think that Portugal is a very peaceful country with a good standard of living. It's not expensive. It's peaceful. we have a good education, good health system. I don't see, of course, I'm suspicious because I want people to come here to to invest, but I think that there are not so many downsides or reasons why someone would not want to use one of these programs. Then Douglas is asking me if the client should be assisted by a lawyer. Yes, absolutely. And what is the kind of budget for the legal assistance? But it depends on the programs. But definitely a lawyer should be recommended, because there are two things that are very important when you come to Portugal: to have a confident lawyer that can help you with details, choosing the best tax regime and the best kind of residence permit for you, for your case, and for your family. And also, the Portuguese tax authorities are very demanding, so they concede these benefits, but they are very vigilant and very thorough in the specific requirements to get this status. So one thing that you have to do is have a lawyer with whom you have confidence, and a competent and quick accountant. That's also very important. Accountants and lawyers, they play different fields. I think that lawyers should not do what accountants do, and the same for accountants. They should not do what lawyers do. I think that both things are very important. If you're thinking on buying a house, if you're thinking on making a purchase, you do have to have a lawyer. I think it's much more safe, and what you pay. I think that the tax rates in Portugal for lawyers are much cheaper than in the other countries, or the general countries of at least West Europe, like Spain, France, or Italy, or France, or Switzerland. And so I think that comparing tax rates of Portuguese lawyers, it depends, of course, if it is a big firm or a medium-sized firm. So I think it's certainly much less expensive, and I think that could be a safer way to apply for one of these programs. Then a very interesting question made by Andrew is if reciprocal tax treaties need to be considered. Yes, of course. I didn't enter in the details in the non-habitual tax regime, but of course, the double taxation conventions, the conventions to avoid double taxations are very important. And mostly if we are speaking about income that you receive from the country of origin, of course. And yes, so it's very important. For example, Sweden revoked, I think, the convention with Portugal because of this program, because people used to pay zero taxes on their pension. But now the Portuguese government applied a tax of 10% for pension income, and that made it other countries did not revoke the double taxation conventions. So yes, it is important, and this is just the general framework. Of course, for particular cases, we should have a look into the details, and that's why it's very important to have a lawyer, because we have to check and to make the framework of the scenario for each individual. Then we have another question, how to choose between Portuguese, UK non-domicile status and Italian new program. Very well, Douglas. We will have to do a study to compare. However, I would say that in terms of costs, of course, living in Portugal is much less expensive, and the weather is very good too. Italy also, it's very good. I totally agree. I mean, it's a free option. Of course, I'm not saying that Portugal is a better country. You have different aspects that you have to consider. I don't know in particular the details. We have to talk with a local lawyer to know the compared regimes for each country. But yes, I think that there are clear advantages also to be considered coming to Portugal. So if no other questions, I would thank everyone, and I will I'll leave our contacts are in our website. So if you need any additional information, you can contact us, of course. And now, if you agree, I will close the recording, and we can ask freely if someone wants to say anything. Just a moment. Thank you very much.